Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's Richie from Boston. It's the 7th. It's January. It's 2026. And I told you it was going to start off really fast in 2026 because these guys are on a clock. They got things to do. So far, the president has broken every international law and went to another country, allegedly, snuck in there, blew a couple of things up for effects. You know, you gotta have explosions or Americans won't watch. And went in and stole a dictator and his wife, who are happy to be here. It's all good. And now, as of right now, in Minneapolis, where the Mossad agent Nick Shirley was just there exposing Somalis, well, ICE has just shot and killed a woman in front of everybody. And this was by design. They didn't have to shoot her in the head and kill her, but you know what? I'm pretty sure they were given the go-ahead because the result, the quid pro quo, will be violent riots. Things just stepped up exponentially. An American woman just got shot in the head, dead by ICE agents. This is by design, okay? Trump swooping in and stealing all the oil from Venezuela, allegedly, just got every other country that matters to start really looking for an option to the dollar. Trump just screwed us big time, but he's pulling the plug. I mean, it's all by design. Sometimes you get caught up in the, the production of it all, but Trump is a billionaire. I could be a millionaire by now, but I'm not because I give my money away many times to my own detriment. Trump ain't me. Trump became a billionaire not once, but twice, thanks to Israel, which is why he's a Zionist. You see what I'm saying? But Trump has opened us up for every scene in civil war and leave the world behind to come to fruition now. You know what I mean? The cover of The Economist magazine makes perfect sense now, doesn't it? Because all it shows is robots attacking people and blood spilling everywhere. So whether the ICE guys stepped in front of her car or whatever, it doesn't matter. They're not going to get in any trouble for it. And even if they were at fault or she was at fault, it won't matter. The quid pro quo. There will be protests and it will escalate exponentially. They are stoking the fire every which way they possibly can. And it's funny. It's funny because, law and order, this, that, and the other thing. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 actually stole the plans for a United States nuclear tank and gave it to China, who then made the exact same tank and showed it off and never got in any trouble for it. You know why? Nobody stole all of our war designs and all of our patents and all this. It was given to them by these politicians. These politicians are basically the mafia on steroids. All right, they don't give one shit about America. They don't care about any of us. They're globalists, okay? America is just a great big area to rob and pillage, and that's exactly what they're doing, and you must understand that. There's no turning this ship around whatsoever at all. At all. This is getting insane. And then speaking of insane, I can't help but point your eyes to the skies. Eyes to the skies, everyone. NASA said, no, that's not me. That's the mainstream mimicker 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 I was just making fun of because he's a complete joke, but I digress. So remember the green orb that I showed you, literally coming out of the sky and entering the Missouri Arc? There it is. Well, here's another one that Minutes of Horror caught, and watch this green orb correcting. See it? Goes down and then goes up. Watch this. It's flying along, taking a long time. Okay, here we go. Watch this. It dips down and then it comes back up. You see that? Yeah, meteors don't do that. Just FYI. And here's something I've been quacking about for an awfully long time. You'll remember when the sun simulator 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗏 NASA 1969 showed up on the internet? That was from me. I brought that up, and here it is right now, live in Saudi Arabia. That's two suns in the sky, and the people in Saudi Arabia were checking it out. They were kind of happy, like, hey, that's crazy. Look at the two suns. That's crazy. And of course, the mainstream said, oh no, those aren't two suns you're seeing right there. 1, 2, like Richie from Boston's been showing for years. No, that's not what you're seeing. You're seeing a sundog. Now, a sundog is a reflection that you usually see up in Antarctica or, way, way up where it's really cold and you're close to the edge of the firmament, and the sun literally creates a reflection that they call a sundog. Well, a sundog is just showing you that there is a firmament above that showeth God's handiwork. Nothing more, nothing else. And it looks like this. Well, stand by. Somebody asked Grok if this video was real, and the video called a sundog. It's real. It's a real video. Of course it is. 30 people took the video, and they called it a sundog. And Minutes of Horror was good enough to point out the fact what I just said. A sundog looks like this. Doesn't look anything like what you just saw. That's a sundog. That's a reflection on the firmament, period, way up at the North Pole or wherever, because we don't even know where we are. But on that, I will digress.
As children, we imagined the promise of tomorrow. A future where science fiction would become reality. That's where our journey began. Our goal was simple: to find out what was possible. Animals and humans move so easily through the world. Our obsession was with how. So, we gave them legs, arms, hands. You watched our robots do the impossible: jump, run, climb, and flip. Then we asked, what if we could automate the hard work? Make things safer, easier, make our lives better. For 5 years, we've been taking robots out of the lab and into the world. Now begins the next chapter, a superhuman robot, built to perform, built to work. Atlas is the realization of 3 decades pushing and breaking boundaries. The best we've ever built, and the bridge between human ingenuity and what comes next. Innovation is our lever. Your imagination is our inspiration. A world where physical automation expands our horizons. A world where robots walk with us as helpers and companions to make life easier, safer, and more fulfilling. Atlas is not the end of our journey, but the beginning of your tomorrow.
And this is a little comment that I left here for these guys. Nobody asked for these. You know that they will cause mass job losses and, of course, killing. You should never sleep well again. It's crazy, man. Crazy. They're making these things and they just do not care whatsoever at all. I mean, I've been following Boston Dynamic and showing it to you guys for well over a decade, and it's not getting any better. It's getting worse. And here's the fun part. If this is what they're showing us, imagine what we don't see. You know what I mean? Imagine what they've got underground. Everything we see is 50 years behind, at least, period. So it's not going to be a very long video. I just wanted to get out there that information that I got out there. And if you catch anything crazy in the sky, I'm not talking about chemtrails. I can get chemtrails all day, every single day. If you get anything crazy in the sky, rjcjr10 at yahoo.com. And I got to say one thing. One of my subscribers that I'm supposed to have met already down in Florida, a guy named Brett, that's all I'm going to say, really stepped up out of the blue today and took a serious amount of weight off my shoulders. And I can't thank him enough, man. I mean, it's just crazy. It's crazy how God works. You know what I mean? And it's crazy when you really start focusing. Like I started focusing on my faith. Like, Richie, you pray. You do what you're supposed to do. God will come through as always. And wow, it's crazy. So hopefully in the next day or two, I'll get this truck completely buttoned up and I'll be out of here. I just find it really odd, you know. The truck's sitting for 2 weeks and the transfer cases just fail. That's insane. That's insane, you know. And I mean, I'm sleeping on top of my truck on a lift tonight, which is odd, but you know, it is what it is. What are you going to do? At any rate, be ready because they're going to keep ramping this up. You know what I mean? When I mentioned that Nick Shirley is working with Mossad, he may be doing it unknowingly, but he's a Mormon. CIA, Central Intelligence, and all these Secret Service guys love to recruit from Utah. I mean, we just saw the whole Charlie Kirk lie. His wife, the whole thing, that whole story is just coming undone. But it doesn't matter because nothing's ever going to happen to anybody. No one will ever be brought to justice. We live in a lawless world. The president of the United States just went to another country and abducted somebody. That's illegal, but it doesn't matter anymore. The Epstein files, there's nothing there, the FBI director said. But yet there is. You see what I mean? We're living in the times of the lawless one right now. We're not in Satan's short season, okay? It's biblically unsound. I know. Thumbs down. Have at it. But there's no rapture either. You know what I mean? And for people like Charlie Kirk, his wife, oh, he's in heaven. No, he's not. Nobody's in heaven. Nobody's in hell. Jesus hasn't come back yet. There's been no judgment. You don't go anyplace till you've been judged. Remember that. Or don't. I'm out. Actually, I'm not out right just yet. I'm going to play 10 minutes of this video. This video is, I'm positive this is an AI channel. I'm messing with my mic. That's what all that noise is. Sorry. I'm positive this is an AI channel, but I listened to this entire thing today. And he's got the story right, except he's got the story wrong. He thinks the United States, that our government is trying to save the United States. He doesn't understand they're trying to destroy the dollar. And they're trying to, when all the smoke clears, all these politicians, everybody that caused the situation that us and all the other countries are in, they're going to bail. They're going to go in their underground bunkers. They're going to go to their islands. They're going to be out of there. We're going to be stuck here dealing with other countries that are going to just start smoking us, just like the cover of The Economist magazine said. But in the interim, this AI thing is right. So like I've told you a dozen times, so many people that listened to me 2 years ago when I started talking about Gold Co., I don't sell gold. You're turning your IRA or your 401k, your retirement, you're taking it now and turning it into gold. The people that did it 2 years ago, they almost tripled their money. That would never have happened in their entire, they never would have doubled their money their entire 401k's 20, 30 year period. You see what I'm saying? So get your money out of the bank now while you can, before gold goes up to 8,000, because it will. It has to. It has to. The only thing that's going to be worth anything is going to be whatever you've got in your hand. At any rate, listen to this guy, or AI, or whatever it is, or don't.
Revealed. The petrodollar is an enforcement system, and once you know that, your behavior changes. Let me show you the second order effects, what countries did in response. Within 72 hours of the incident, 14 countries released a joint statement calling for the creation of an alternative international payment system that does not rely on the US dollar. The signatories were China, Russia, Brazil, India, South Africa, Iran, Turkey, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, Argentina, Venezuela, and Nigeria. This is not a fringe group. This is 3.8 billion people. This is 43% of global GDP. And they just announced they are building a non-dollar payment system. The statement specifically cited the need for financial sovereignty and independence from coercive mechanisms. Diplomatic language for, we do not want to be Venezuela. Saudi Arabia accelerated talks with China. Within 2 weeks of the incident, reports emerged that Saudi Arabia and China were finalizing an agreement for Saudi Arabia to accept yuan for 20% of oil sales to China. The Saudis had been negotiating this for 2 years. They kept delaying because they were worried about U.S. reaction. The Venezuela incident made them realize that delaying is more dangerous than acting. If the U.S. is going to enforce the petrodollar through regime change, better to diversify now while you still can. By February 2026, Saudi Arabia announced the deal. 1.4 million barrels per day to China, paid in yuan. That is $38 billion per year exiting the dollar system. The petrodollar just lost its anchor. Russia formalized oil for goods barter arrangements with 18 countries. No currency involved. Direct trade. Russia announced the list publicly. India, China, Iran, Turkey, Egypt, South Africa, Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, Syria, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia. Russia is now trading oil for rupees, yuan, rubles, goods, machinery, electronics, and food. Anything but dollars. Brazil and China launched a bilateral currency swap line, allowing them to trade directly in reais and yuan without converting to dollars first. This had been discussed for years. The Venezuela incident accelerated implementation. By March 2026, it was operational. Brazil-China trade is approximately $150 billion annually. That is $150 billion that no longer requires dollar intermediation. Iran and India finalized a rupee-rial payment mechanism for oil trade. India is now paying for Iranian oil in rupees deposited in Indian banks. Iran uses those rupees to buy Indian goods, no dollars. This had been in pilot mode for 2 years. After January 2026, it went full scale. The BRICS nations announced an accelerated timeline for launching a new reserve currency. The original target was 2028. After the Venezuela incident, they moved it to Q4 2026. The currency will be backed by a basket of commodities: 40% gold, 30% oil, 20% rare earth minerals, 10% agricultural commodities. It is designed to be an alternative to the dollar for international trade settlement. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank announced it will offer project financing in yuan, not dollars. Countries borrowing for infrastructure projects no longer need dollars to access development finance. China is providing an alternative funding system. Add all these moves up. By Q2 2026, an additional $380 billion in annual trade and energy transactions had shifted out of dollars. That is on top of the $493 billion that was already in non-dollar currencies before the incident. Total, $873 billion annually. That is 24% of global oil trade and 7% of all global trade. The dollar just lost a quarter of the oil market in 6 months. Now let me show you what happens when the dollar loses 7% of global trade demand. When demand for dollars falls, the value of the dollar falls. Basic economics. If there is less demand for a currency, the price of that currency decreases. Over the course of 2026, the dollar is projected to fall 8 to 12% against major currencies. Against emerging market currencies, the fall will be less because those currencies are also under pressure. But against the yuan, the dollar is projected to fall 15 to 18% by year-end 2026. What does this mean for you? When the dollar falls 10%, everything you import costs 11% more. You might think, I do not import things. Yes, you do. 40% of the goods in an American grocery store are imported or contain imported components. Your phone is imported, your electronics are imported, your clothes are mostly imported, your car has imported parts. If the dollar falls 10%, consumer prices on imported goods rise 11%. If inflation is currently 3.2%, and imported goods are 30% of CPI, that adds 3.3 percentage points to inflation. Inflation goes from 3.2% to 6.5%. Your cost of living just rose 6.5% in 1 year. Your salary did not. You are poor. And this compounds. Because when inflation rises, the Fed is forced to raise interest rates. If the Fed raises rates from 4.5% to 6.5% to fight inflation, mortgage rates go from 7% to 9%. Credit card rates go from 22% to 26%. Auto loans go from 7% to 9.5%. Consumer spending crashes under the weight of high rates. The economy enters recession. But the government's interest expense explodes. The U.S. has $36.2 trillion in debt. If interest rates rise to 6.5%, annual interest expense rises from $113 trillion to $235 trillion. That is more than the entire defense budget. That is more than Social Security. The government cannot afford it. So they print money to cover the interest payments. This creates more inflation. The spiral accelerates. Now, here's the geopolitical endgame. The petrodollar is ending. Not in 10 years. In the next 18 to 24 months, let me show you the timeline. Q1 2026, January to March. The Venezuela incident accelerates de-dollarization plans globally. Oil at $86, dollar down 1.3%. Countries quietly negotiate bilateral trade deals in non-dollar currencies. Q2 2026, April to June. Saudi Arabia announces 20% of oil to China in yuan. This is the breaking point. If Saudi Arabia, the pillar of the petrodollar system, accepts yuan, everyone will follow. Oil spikes to $97. Dollar falls another 4%. Gas hits $4.10 per gallon in the US Q3 2026, July to September. UAE, Kuwait, Iraq, Nigeria, Angola, and Kazakhstan announced they will accept yuan or euro for portions of oil sales. The dollar's share of global oil transactions falls from 82% in January 2026 to 68% by September. Oil hits $108. Dollar down 9% year to date. Gas hits $4.85 per gallon. Inflation hits 6.8%. Q4 2026, October to December. The BRICS nations launched their commodity-backed reserve currency. Initial uptake is limited, but it signals the direction. The dollar's share of global reserves falls from 58% to 54%. Oil hits $118. Dollar down 11% for the year. Gas hits $5.40 per gallon. The U.S. economy enters recession. GDP contracts 2.1%. Unemployment rises to 6.2%, but inflation is still 7.4%. Stagflation. The dollar continues falling, down 18% from January 2026. Gas averages $6.20 per gallon. Import prices up 22%. Inflation averages 8.9% for the year, despite recession. The Fed is trapped at 7% interest rates. The government deficit explodes to $3.6 trillion as tax revenue collapses and interest expense hits $2.6 trillion. The U.S. must monetize 80% of the deficit. Foreign buyers refuse to buy treasuries. The dollar's reserve currency status is in freefall. The dollar's share of global reserves falls below 50%. The yuan reaches 24%, the euro 22%. A multipolar currency system is the new reality. The American standard of living, inflated for 50 years by the petrodollar subsidy, adjusts downward. Your purchasing power is 25 to 30% lower than 2025. This is permanent. Now, who wins and who loses? The losers are ordinary Americans. You earn dollars, you save dollars, you hold dollar-denominated assets. When the dollar loses 20% of its value, you are 20% poor. Your $80,000 salary buys what $64,000 bought 2 years ago. You cannot keep up with costs. Your standard of living falls. You're the victim of the petrodollar collapse. The losers are American retirees. You are on a fixed income. Social Security adjusts for CPI, but CPI understates real inflation by 2 to 3 percentage points. Your purchasing power falls 5% per year. In 5 years, you have lost 25% of your buying power. You cannot afford medicine and food. You must move in with family or go back to work. The losers are countries that stayed loyal to the dollar too long. If you are a small oil exporter that kept pricing in dollars and kept reserves in treasuries, you just watched your reserves lose 20% of value. You could have diversified. You did not. You lost. The winners are China and countries that exited early. China built an alternative system. They locked in energy supplies in yuan. When the dollar falls 20%, the yuan gains 28% in relative value. China wins. Countries like Russia, Iran, and Venezuela that were forced out of the dollar system early and built alternative structures are now positioned well. They saw this coming because they experienced dollar weaponization first. The winners are individuals with hard assets. If you own gold, real estate, commodities, energy stocks, and foreign currency denominated assets, you are hedged. When the dollar falls, these assets rise in dollar terms. Your wealth is protected. Everyone else loses. So what do? First, understand that this is happening now, not in some distant future. The Venezuela incident in January 2026, regardless of whether it was real, was the catalyst that made petrodollar enforcement explicit. Countries are now racing to exit the system. Second, reduce dollar exposure. If you have $300,000 in cash, bonds, and dollar-denominated assets, you have 100% dollar exposure. Move 35 to 40% into foreign currencies, gold, international stocks, and hard assets. This protects you from dollar depreciation. Third, buy energy stocks and commodities. Oil is going to $120 per barrel by late 2027. Energy companies will make record profits. Gold is going from $2,688 today to $3,600 within 24 months. Allocate 20% to gold, 15% to energy. Fourth, prepare for stagflation. Budget for gas at $6 per gallon. Budget for food up 30%. Budget for imported goods up 25%. This is not temporary. This is the new reality. Fifth, pay attention to Saudi Arabia. If the Saudis announce 50% of oil in yuan, the petrodollar is finished. If you see that headline, move all remaining dollar assets into hedges immediately. That is the end stage trigger. And sixth, understand that the U.S. government cannot stop this. They can invade Venezuela. They can threaten sanctions. They can use military force. But when you enforce a system through power, rather than economic strength, you do not stop the collapse. You accelerate it, because every country sees the enforcement and realizes they need to escape before they are next. The petrodollar is ending. The Venezuela incident, whether real or a psyop or disinformation, does not matter. What matters is that the world believed it, and that belief triggered actions that are now irreversible. Countries are building alternative systems. The dollar is losing its monopoly, and you're going to pay for it in higher costs, lower purchasing power, and a collapsing standard of living. You have been warned. The age of dollar dominance is ending. The Venezuela incident was the moment the world realized the system is maintained through force, not strength. And when you realize that, you leave. And everyone is leaving. Right now. Smash that like button. Subscribe. Because in the next video, I'm going to show you what the US government does when they realize the dollar is collapsing and they have lost control. And the answer is domestic financial controls, capital controls, wealth taxes, forced conversion of retirement accounts. It is already being planned, and you need to know what is coming.